The date has been set. Will you be there or will you be here? Of course, it's the clash of the titans, Lisa Hanna versus Mark Goldin, and the date is November 7th. Now, we have at least a month before we get to November 7th. And of course, this means cash because this is an election, and these two giants will be going head to head as they try to decide who will be the new president of the People's National Party. Now, many persons are beginning to express concerns about how this financial clash between these two PNP titans. Of course, we know that Lisa Hanna and Mark Goldin both have the ability to attract major financial support. People's National Party's National Executive Council is also concerned about the financial spending that may be done by both candidates who have declared their intention to contest the November 7th presidential elections. Therefore, the National Executive Council has an intention to establish a monitoring committee by the end of this week. The purpose of this monitoring committee is to decide on a spending cap as the two presidential hopefuls gear up to contest the November 7th poll. Lisa Hanna, who is currently the Member of Parliament for St. Anne South Eastern, and Mark Goldin, who represents St. Andrew Southern, has formally stated that they will be contesting the presidential elections as they declared their candidacy on Sunday, September 27th. Their declaration came 3 weeks after Dr. Peter Phillips, who is currently the party president and opposition leader, made an announcement that he would be vacating his office after the PNP's major loss in the September 3rd general elections. Funding from donors and other financial supporters of the People's National Party will be critical to the amount of support that each candidate receives. It will also be critical to the success of the November 7th presidential elections. Financial support is imperative at this time, even more so as a result of the change in how they will be conducting these elections. Delegates will have to vote in various parishes, and therefore this will require more funding. Financial support is so critical that even in the 2019 presidential election that was contested by Peter Phillips and Peter Bunting, many raised questions about money being used by the One PNP and the Rise United camps to get support from PNP delegates and other supporters during the 2019 presidential elections. Lisa Hanna, who played a critical role during that presidential election campaign and who was the communications director for Peter Phillips' One PNP team at that time, had mentioned that votes were being solicited using cash. Many close to the party are of the opinion that the party will not be able to sanction any person who is guilty of exceeding the agreed spending limits. According to them, the leadership of the PNP has not shown in the past that they have the courage to address this spending limit issue. The chairman of the PNP, Fitz Jackson, has stated that there was a value to imposing a spending limit on each candidate, but he also declined to pronounce or make a statement on any impending spending limits that will be given. According to him, the 2019 presidential race had a $15 million spending limit for each candidate. Stands, the monitoring committee for the impending presidential elections of the PNP has not had a meeting as yet, but the chairman has stated that he is not going to make any statements about spending limits because he does not want to cause a bias in the decision that will be made by this monitoring committee. as they are quite empowered to set their own guidelines. The PNP party is, however, concerned about the unseemly influence of finances in national elections and would have extended an equally forceful the use of finances to influence the outcome of the impending presidential elections. The chairman is also concerned about the guidelines that will be put in place for spending limits for each candidate. According to him, when money is spent in any, I dare say, a reckless way, it undermines the democratic process within the party and within the country at large. So yes, it is a concern for us, not only just the spending of money, but also the manner in which this money is used. In addition to determining the amount, the monitoring committee is also expected to establish sanctions for breaches of the expected spending limit that they will state clearly in their guidelines. Jackson further went on to state that he is not suggesting that the mechanism that will be put in place by the monitoring committee will prove to be foolproof, but he intends to ensure that the mechanism that is put in place will be effective in ensuring that accountability and responsibility is used by both candidates to ensure that they do not exceed the spending limit for the presidential elections. Both Lisa Hanna and Mark Golding have the necessary personal financial backing to support their own respective campaigns. Mr. Golding is an attorney and was a founding member of the Daring, Bunting and Golding Limited Company, which is currently named Scotia Investments Jamaica Limited. He was a partner with Peter Bunting in starting that company. Golding also supported Peter Bunting in his failed attempt to take the presidency from Peter Phillips in 2019. Lisa Hanna, who is the former Miss World, is currently married to Richard Lake, and therefore she has her own personal financial support as well. Julian Robinson did not provide a comment on the role of finances in the presidential race. However, he gave assurance that by the end of this week, the monitoring committee will determine and prepare and present guidelines on the spending limits for this presidential election. According to Mr. Robinson, there is an election monitoring committee that will have to speak about and meet to make a decision on the spending limit for this presidential elections. And he also further stated that he does not want to speak about the matter any further, as he would like to leave the election monitoring committee to make all the necessary decisions and stipulate all of the guidelines that they wish to see adhered to in the impending presidential elections. Heard statements from the chairman of the PNP and also the General Secretary Julian Robinson has spoken on the matter of spending limits. However, they are leaving all of these decisions to be made by the Elections Monitoring Committee for the PNP presidential elections. Now let me know what you think about the influence that cash has on not just the national elections but presidential elections in Jamaica. Of course, let me know what you think will go down with the finances of both Lisa Hanna and Mark Golding, because they are heavily backed by cash.